Hi, my name is Michal Hrusecky and I work at CZNIC on Project Turris. What I would like to talk about today is what we did in the last year, what we are working on right now, and what are our plans for the future. Let's start with some history and some introduction of the project. We started in 2013 as a research project of CZNIC. We started with a hardware security probe that we gave away to people in Czech Republic, and we were investigating how much are those people attacked. Those probes were by accident also really cool router, and as we do with everything in CZNIC, we did them open source. We put in Linux distribution based on OpenWRT, and we did everything as we thought that it should be done. So we gave people root accounts, we provided automatic updates, and such. Those routers from 2013 are still alive, and one of the news that I want to actually talk about is during the whole last year, we were polishing our migration from Turris OS 3 point something to our latest release, Turris OS 5.2.3 right now. This took us a lot of work, and we ran into one issue. Those old routers from 2013 no longer have enough storage to support everything, and if you have some additional packages, you can't reinstall a whole system on the flash memory that they have. Therefore, we have to come up with some clever ideas how to extend the storage so we wouldn't force people using those to abandon them. One solution actually came from a hackathon that we organized, and that was putting a system on micro SD card in the slot that is actually already part of those old routers. And other solution is something that we were polishing basically because we want to discontinue Turris OS 3. And because we want to discontinue it, we want to provide people an easy option to migrate to new system. We think that plugging in a USB flash drive should be easy enough to convince people to migrate. Now let's take a look at how it's done. This is Turris 1.0 routers that we produced. The difference between this one and 1.0 is, for example, USB 3 port up front, but in general they were almost the same. Now, if we want to use Btrfs and extend our internal storage, we can do it in multiple ways. The easiest one is just to plug in an ordinary USB drive in the back and be done with it. Use the newer version of the script that we are about to release. Slightly different option that is already available for some time is to use internal micro SD card slot. For that, we would need to first undo several screws that I already took away and open up the top cover. And now we need to unplug the RAM, and beneath it we can see hidden micro SD card slot. We just put micro SD card inside, replace the RAM, and add back the cover. Now you need to just run the script that is already part of the distribution, and you can migrate to Btrfs, use all the new features, and you have nothing sticking out from your router, and you have both USB slots free for additional. Now that was the hardware part. Now after that you need to run a script on your router to migrate everything. It will take a long time with some cheap flash drive. Well, cheap, it was free. I got it on some conference. It took me half an hour to migrate Turris 1.1, but in the end it rebooted and started working again. But during the process I had to be patient, and I started to disbelieve that it will actually work. The migration can take quite a while, but be patient. During that time you might lose the internet connection, you might lose Wi-Fi, and it might even start blinking weirdly because reinstallation of LED drivers and control. But in the end it should succeed and get you up and running. That's how we took care of our oldest routers. For Omnia, that was our first commercially available router, we put an option into our Turris interface, and you just with few clicks can enable automatic migration, and it will migrate you to the newer version of OS. Again, it may take a while, and during the migration your network might go down, but it should succeed in most cases. What we were doing in the last year was hunting down various corner cases, and typical network setup should work all the time. You might lose some of the obsolete packages that were part of Turris OS 3 and are no longer available in Turris OS 5. So after migration, check that all your services are there, up and running and fully working. Speaking of releases, we did few of them in the last year, and one of them is about to happen. It should be in RC stage right now. This video is pre-recorded, so I know that we plan next week to release the first RC of 5.3, and if everything goes to the plan, it should be out now when you are watching it. And those releases were mainly focused on Turris Sentinel, our security research program that we are still running and using. And I will actually not talk about that because my colleagues have separate talk in this conference that is targeting just Turris Sentinel and all the new features. Apart from that, what is going to happen, hopefully by end of the year, is Turris OS 6. As you might know, we are based on OpenWRT, and Turris OS 5 is based on OpenWRT 1907. And recently, in September, OpenWRT released their new official stable release 21.02. We are going to rebase on top of that and release Turris OS 6 based on that, but we still have some rough edges to polish. For example, one of the important changes that happened there is decoupling of the network configuration into second and third layer. So the configuration changed quite a lot, we have to take care of migration again, this time from Turris OS 5 to Turris OS 6. And on top of that, we need to update our user interface to allow people to configure stuff correctly in Turris OS 6. Speaking of user interface, in Turris OS 6 we are actually going to deprecate our user interface voice in favor of a new reimplementation called RefVoice. It is already available nowadays in Turris OS 5, and it is actually not missing much of the functionality from voice. One of the last things that we were figuring out how to replace was Pacoň, that was integrated in Turris. It's our internal network monitoring tool, and we actually decided to split it up into separate application. So starting from Turris OS 6, you will have it as a separate application from RefVoice. This will allow us to make UI in the future fancier. We wouldn't be limited by RefVoice design, and we will be able to go nuts with that. Speaking of software, we are also planning new features. One of the cool features that I'm excited about is some proof of concept of integration of IDS solution. IDS stands for Intrusion Detection System. And what those systems do is basically that they do deep packet inspection on all the traffic that is going through your network, and they are looking for suspicious content. Sometimes it might be a known user agent, sometimes it might be suspicious query, and what they are looking for are either viruses, Trojan horses, malwares, or sometimes it can even look for policy violations and such. Our initial implementation will be really simple. We will just allow you to enable it, and it will show up some notifications on your screen, but we will improve over the time. Let's now switch to hardware. We are producing the hardware after all. So what news do I have about the hardware? In the last year we tried several 5G cards, some Wi-Fi 6 cards, and we were also thinking about what new hardware could we produce. What can I tell you about the results? Regarding 5G cards, we found some that are working in USB mode. Disadvantage is that Turris Omnia actually have only USB 2 internal slot. So if you put 5G card in Turris Omnia, you are limited to USB 2 speeds. And other disadvantage is that we haven't found really reliable ones, but that might be overcome with kernel updates and more testing and more polishing. But the more important part is that all the cards that we found were $300 and more, so not really cheap. Regarding Wi-Fi 6, news are a little bit brighter. We tried several cards, and again, quite some of them didn't work. But in the end, we managed to get one card with a MediaTek chipset that is Wi-Fi 6 and actually works. And we are now trying to get all the necessary paperwork done, all the certifications and stuff. So we are sure that we can recommend it, and hopefully once we get through all the testing, we will start recommending them, and probably we will come up with some upgrade pack for Turris Omnia and probably for other routers as well. But Turris Omnia is here for a while with us already. So are we planning some refreshment? Of course we are. We are currently working on design of Omnia 2. This is currently codename, it can change. And we don't have anything set in stone yet, but we already have some pretty concrete ideas about what it should look like. What we expect that it will be is 64-bit ARM CPU. It should be running at 2 GHz. It should be 4-core. It should have two 10 gigabit interfaces, and one for WAN, one for LAN, and some 2.5 gig interfaces. It should be able to handle 5G, so we are planning for internal USB 3 port. It should come from factory with Wi-Fi 6 already. And one thing that we are playing with is display instead of LEDs. What you can see down there is our design prototype. As it will be more powerful, it will have more RAM, it will have faster interfaces, it will actually use more power and would need better cooling. We want to have it done with passive cooling, so you wouldn't be bothered by some active ventilators. Other thing that you can see on the pictures is that there will be plenty of antennas, because Wi-Fi 6 4x4 means 4 antennas. If we add 5G, it will be another 4 antennas, so we are at 8 total antennas. If we use duplexers as we do in current design, so we would share some of those antennas. Now, what we plan to use the display for? In Omnia, one of the cool features was RGB LEDs, so you could define various states and distinguish between port states by color, and define your own alerts with RGB LEDs. With display, we can provide you much more information, and also if we implement the support for the display in rescue mode, it will be much more convenient to browse through various rescue features. For example, as we heavily use snapshots for your backups, now in rescue mode you will have an option to select the snapshot that you want and browse the snapshot history and see for yourself and decide what you want to do in rescue mode. We have some ways to switch between various rescue modes even now in our rescue system. We are using it on TurrisMox, but the feedback that we got is that it's too geeky for average user. So we came up with the idea of using display and simple buttons. That's what we are playing with right now. We don't have a prototype of the hardware yet. We are in the design phase, so our hardware engineers are still going through the documentation of the SoC. They are drawing schematics and deciding how to put everything on PCB. So the thing that I'm showing here is just the case that we believe the final prototype will fit in. And inside we currently have a standard Omnia board that is driving everything. So anything can change, but this is where we think we are heading right now. So hopefully you will like new Turris Omnia 2 as well as you like the previous one. Thank you for your attention.